all things Halloween. This is hauntformer, and yesterday I attended the grand opening of the Spirit Halloween Flagship store, at least at the recording of this video. I may post it a few days late, but sue me. The video is out on my channel. You can see all of the new animatronics for yourself. I even have with me my official Halloween suit because things are about to get very official, I guess. Today, I am going to be ranking the entire Spirit Halloween 2021 lineup with an asterisk at the end because I always like to throw those in. And this year, I have two kind of big asterisks for my ranking. And you might disagree with how I'm going to be presenting this, but you know, I'm going to do what I want. And so this is how I feel I most comfortably can rank all of these animatronics. There are a lot this year, and I like most all of them, so I had to think of a way to consolidate what I'm doing. So the first caveat to this video is I'm not going to be ranking any returning animatronics. This also includes Wacky Mole Clown and Bloody Bag of Jokes, which leads to my second caveat, is I'm not going to be ranking any of the online-only ones. So the two-headed clowns with the ice cream, and even the ones in the box that we don't see in the store, like W. Wraith. I haven't seen them in person, and I don't feel like I can adequately talk about them in this ranking. I can talk about them in a separate video, but when I compare them all, I want to see their full potential in person and then make my decision. This is a new kind of way I'm doing it. Last year I just looked at the videos, but since I had the chance to see them in person, it would be unfair of me to rank something like Headless Jack, which I have no idea what it looks like, the size, anything like that. So, those are my two stipulations, and besides that, as always, this is my opinion. It's going to differ from yours, but leave your opinion down in the comments below. Let me know what are your least favorites and favorites from Spirit Halloween 2021. The good news, at least for me, is that none of the animatronics this year were bad. There are some that I like more than others, but none of them I would say are terrible, unlike my not liking, you could say, of props like Johnny Punk or Graveyard Ghoul in the past. Let's jump into I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's jump into the ranking of Spirit Halloween's 2021 animatronics. If you notice me glancing down at any point in this video, it's because I'm looking at a list to make sure I'm well organized for this ranking. So, just again, a heads up, none of the online-onlys, none of the returning ones. I'm not talking about Wacky Mole in this video, I'm not talking about W. Wraith, I'm not talking about Headless Jack, or the Ice Cream Clowns, or Bloody Bag of Jokes, all that stuff. I'm just sticking with the ones that are in stores that you can see right now at the flagship location and nationwide. Starting off in last place, again, I don't hate it, I don't hate the animatronic, but it's my least favorite. Also, something I'm going to do with each animatronic is I'm going to give a pro and a con to each, which means for the ones I don't like, I'm going to give a compliment, and for the ones I do, I'm going to give even a recommendation or room for improvement, because I think to talk about them can only make things better in the future. You feel me? So in last place, we have the new Pennywise, the sewer pop-up Pennywise. I've never been a huge fan of Pennywise animatronics. We've gotten so many over the years. I don't hate Pennywise, just so you know. I just think he's a little overrated, and he's not my favorite horror character out there. One of the issues I have with this new Pennywise is that he's inside of this sewer, right? And it's not a bad jump scare, actually. The problem with it is people who get the licensed characters, on the whole, like them to display that character. When Pennywise is inside of the sewer, you can't display Pennywise but for 10 seconds when he pops up. Then it resets and all you have is this large sewer. Now, if this was a haunt prop and maybe there was a pop-up alligator inside, I would want it because I could use that for my haunt, but I'm not going to use Pennywise, and therefore this prop kind of becomes pointless. It's not good enough for collectors, it's not good enough for haunters, unless you're a diehard Pennywise fan, which I'm not, you're not going to gravitate towards this, and therefore it's at the bottom of my list. Again, it's not terrible. I do think the hair is a little weird, especially at the one in Flagship, but besides the point, I think the face looks scary, so I'm being complimentary here, but I just don't care for this new Pennywise. It's as simple as that. In second to last place, and I really didn't want to put this here, and you're gonna be shocked, actually, but I have to. It's experiment number 4. If you know me, you know I love experiments, I love the weird stuff, and even in my reaction to the Spirit Halloween Graveyard Shift, I praised this prop for being unique and different. But when I saw the $100 price tag, when I noticed that most of the crate is made of thinner plastic material, and the fact that the hand just pops up and resets, it really just wasn't doing a whole lot for me, to be completely honest. I still love the idea. I really love anything that's in a crate or mysterious. I even like the look of the hand. It reminds me of the Fluffy character from Creepshow, except it's red. But that's besides the point. I really don't think it can work very well for a lot of reasons. Unless you have it up on a table in a haunt, I don't think people are going to notice the jump scare. I think it's too small. I think it's a little too overpriced. There are a few reasons keeping it so low. I don't think it's terrible. I could potentially get it at a sale at some point because, I really want to like it. But I'm being honest here. Compared to everything else, I feel like your $100, even with a coupon, even that $80, could be used for one of the other animatronics on this list. Now we're getting into where you're going to hang me here. Up next, we have Harriet Hustle. I know she's super low, and I know you disagree with me, and that's okay. Basically, my distaste for her comes down to the fact, as simple as I wouldn't use her for anything. You know me with clowns. I've always said unless a clown's original, I'm not a huge fan of it. I do think she's actually original. I do think having this little girl, kind of this act at the circus, could really work for a lot of people. For me, it's really hard to invest in hanging props because I have a difficult time using them in my haunts, and especially with the fact that it's a little girl clown, I really don't know what I would do with her. I think she has her market, and I think she'll be a fine seller, and I don't even think the price is that bad. It just comes down to I really don't want her. I don't think she's bad. I like the knife in the mouth, and the animation is fine. Again, it just comes down to the simple fact that I wouldn't use Harriet Hustle. Also, just in case anyone's wondering, you don't have to get both Henry and Harriet Hustle. It doesn't have to be a duo. You can make up the backstory as you see fit, in case you thought you had to get both. Up next, we have Night Stalker. Now, some people really love this, some people really hate it. I'm mixed. I don't like the animation. It doesn't work for scarecrows, and I also, I think this character is a little annoying in terms of the voice. The laugh doesn't really fit that character. On the plus side, though, I actually enjoy the appearance of it. I really like how it has leapt off of its stake, and it's looking to seek people out. Had it just been breathing and maybe looking side to side, I would have ranked it a lot higher on this list. However, the fact that it's kind of annoying, the fact that the head moves like Boogeyman, it just doesn't do it for me. It doesn't feel like a scarecrow, and that's where he's going to remain, towards the lower end of this list. Those 4 were kind of meh. I'm kind of grouping them into groups of 4, because I have 16 total that I'm going to talk about, if you couldn't catch on. Up next, we have... this is a weird one for me to even say, but I have to do it. Ghostface. I know. I was talking this whole season that I was gonna get Ghostface. I love the Scream movies. I love the Ghostface look, the mask. When I saw Ghostface at Flagship, I was immensely disappointed. That was the one I was going to get that day. He's so incredibly small. I can't bring myself to do it. Even for a cheaper price, I think he's a decent price, but it's just too small at the end of the day. It looks like a kid wearing a Ghostface costume. It's not big enough, it's not intimidating, it's not even as big as the Hauntress, which is really bizarre. Spirit, if you're watching me, I'm begging you. I want a Ghostface so bad. I just can't do it with this one. Again, also the other thing I'll go back to, similar to the Pennywise, is for the licensed characters, I think they work better as not jump scare props, more of just an animated character, like other ones that I'm going to get to in this list, which are a lot higher than Ghostface and Pennywise. But Ghostface, when I saw the pictures, he had potential. It just comes down to the fact that it doesn't look like Ghostface. It's much too small. I didn't even mind the audio. The audio was fine. Everything about it was okay. It isn't Ghostface. It's too small. It's not even big enough to be Jill, which is a killer from Scream 4. That might be a spoiler, but whatever. That's been out for a while. It's too small for any of the killers. I know it's not officially licensed from Scream. It's a Ghostface Fun World character, but it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And I feel like I'm tripping over my words here because I really wanted to like it. I really did. I still could probably get it for a sale, but it really let me down. Thankfully, though, there was another on this list that I'll talk about much later that I loved at Flagship, and they kind of switched places, although that character wasn't this low on my list originally. Up next, we have the Caretaker, which is this kind of crypt keeper, kind of creep show, phantom-looking guy with a shovel. And he likes to bench press it, apparently, because the animation suggests that he just kind of lifts it up and down. I don't hate this character. I was kind of towards him when I saw the video of him. In person, I think he looks quite fine. I don't like the animation. I don't think it works well for it. And I don't usually go the cemetery route. I know it's overdone a lot. I like to stick more in my field, my favorite type of Halloween stuff with the zombies, aliens, and a few other monsters that I'll talk about in a minute. But I don't hate the guy. I think it's a fine animatronic if you got it. I think it's a little pricey, and I don't know. It's just not for me. I don't like the animation. That would be my biggest flaw. If it actually looked like he was digging, probably would like it a lot more. But he doesn't. So that's where the Caretaker is going to go. Up next, we have Ophelia. Now, Ophelia is an interesting character. She has a really good price. She has a really good look, especially the little girl with the eye movement. It's very sinister, and the audio is rather creepy to me. My issue with Ophelia is that you have to position her exactly straight. I guess it would be, 180 degrees across from the person looking at her, because if you look at her from any other angle on the sides, you can see the mech, and it takes the illusion away. I also don't really care for the look of the demon. I don't think he's that scary. I find the girl actually more scary than the demon, but I really love the concept here, and for the cheap price, I think she's not a bad buy. But for some of those reasons, it would be difficult to get her to work in a haunt, though it can be done. And actually, if someone does use her for a display, send me a link below or a photo to my email, because I want to see her used properly. Henry Hustle is next up on my list, a character that a lot of people really enjoy. He's a clown, and he has 2 heads. I like it. I like the concept here. Like I said, not a huge fan of clowns, but I like when they're original, and Henry here is original. There's not a whole lot to say. Again, I don't really use clowns very much. This one's cool. I think the head underneath could be a tad more gruesome. It looked very gray when I saw it in the images and in person, and that's not a bad thing, but that's just a matter of preference to me. Though I do really like the concept here, and I think if Spirit played around with it, we could get even more props in the future like Henry Hustle that would have the same impact of that character. I also quite like the look of the clown on the outside besides just the face with the playing cards. That almost could be its own animatronic too. Up next we have Evelyn Leach, the bride character from this year, who cries and lifts her dead husband's head up for us to see. A rather eerie prop. It reminds me and is reminiscent of La Llorona. And I really love the look of the bride. I think she's super eerie and creepy. If it was just the bride for a slightly cheaper price, I probably would have tried to pick her up. But the problem is she is picking up something, and that's her husband's head. And to me, the cartoonish look of the head really takes away from the realisticness of the bride. I really love her. The head, to me, it looks almost like a cake, like a zombie head cake. I'm not trying to bash on the artwork here because it's a fine looking head, but it's a different type of art style to me. It looks more cartoony, in line with something you'd see at Target for Halloween rather than Spirit, and I know this head could be so gruesome. We got a gruesome head back with the Barnyard Butcher. That's all this had to be. It would have been awesome. I still love the concept here. I still think it's a cool animatronic, but that's my catch as to why I wouldn't rank it any higher than where she is now. The Baphomet is up next, a character that you probably didn't expect higher up on my list. Obviously, as a lot of people know, I'm a Christian, and the Baphomet kind of symbolizes the darker spiritual forces, if you will. But I can't help but think this character and this animatronic is well done. It's tall, it's sinister, it's creepy. I really like that darker theme with the animatronics. My issue with him, well, I have kind of two. My first is that I think he's a little overpriced for what he does, but I know he's tall, but then again, my whole complaint with the it's a tall prop argument is you could just lower or extend the pole as much as you want, and that would make the price that different. To me, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but my other issue with it is it doesn't quite remind me of the Baphomet character, as the name would suggest. The Baphomet, of course, has his hands in a certain position. It's more of a realistic goat than a goat skull. Not a bad animatronic at all, but for people who want the actual Baphomet or something a bit darker, this one seems more like it's made by Crazy Bones than it's made by a really dark mind behind the animatronic. Really good one, but those are my issues with it. I like to give the balance and the pros and the cons to each of these, and I hope you understand why. Up next, and we're getting into what I consider to be the top tier animatronics now, we have Grimm. Grimm is, of course, this 6-foot-tall skeleton, and I think he's really capturing a lot of people's attention this year, and one of the reasons for that is the special servos he has all across his body, in his eyes, in his head, and in his arms. He's really, really quite cool, and I think the price is actually very fitting for this animatronic. For all that he does, it's really good. I love skeletons, and he is about as classic of a skeleton as you can get here. I think Grimm is kind of a clapback, if you will, to the Home Depot 12-foot skeleton, and I actually think it's a whole lot better and more interesting. My issue with Grimm, if I had to pick one, is I don't like the phrases, and I think he should be more customizable in the sense of being able to program him yourself and add your own phrases and your own movements to the character. He only has 3 phrases, and only one of them I kinda like, although I'm not a huge fan of the voice on him. I'm getting nitpicky, of course, because I really do love the character, but those are the things that would keep me from buying Grimm, and I suppose other people could have those complaints too, especially because that 12-foot skeleton was so customizable. Also, and this is a real personal peeve, I don't really prefer skeletons with eyes in the sockets. I like the dead-looking skeletons. They're a whole lot creepier to me, though I know exactly what they were doing with Grimm, with the servos, and I respect it, I love it, and I hope that the technology for Grimm can be used in more animatronics down the road, because even if they were over $300, heck, almost $400, I feel like there are people out there who are willing to pay for that kind of quality. Alright, now we're getting into the top 5. I'm just counting. Yep, we are making it into top 5 status. These final 5 were really hard, especially the top 3, but really this whole list was hard because while I'm giving pros and cons, for most of these animatronics, I feel like the pros outweigh those cons. These are just really personal preferences, but if anyone argued in the comments for any of these animatronics, I would vouch for you, quite honestly. But in 5th place, we have Buzzsaw. Buzzsaw is this rather large guy. He has a saw in one hand and a hammer in the other. You've all seen him. He's a big prop, very wide, not just because he's a heavy-set, fat kind of guy, but also because his arms just stretch out so darn wide. He really does look cool, and I love the simple movement on him. With that being said, though, I do think that simple movement could effectively result in a cheaper price. I feel like 280 is a little steep. I feel like 220 is a little more realistic for the Buzzsaw character. I also think the Buzzsaw could be bloodier, because this is definitely more of the slaughterhouse type animatronic, and to just have him kind of clean and plain leaves more up to my imagination, where I would like to have some of those details fit into him. Again, I really do like Buzzsaw. Those are just nitpicky things, and he is in my list for ones I would like to purchase, though I feel like a lot of my money is going to be expended by my top 3, so I don't know if I'll ever make it to him. Just saying. Now we're down to the top 4. In 4th place, we have, I think, the year's favorite animatronic, judging by Flagship, judging by so many people I've seen on Instagram and on YouTube, Mr. Dark, which completely took everyone by surprise at Flagship. When we first saw it in the video, we saw this crouching little creature, and in the next shot of the graveyard shift, he was like 8 or 9 feet tall. I didn't know what to make of it. I thought it was going to rise up slowly, because I'm like, how the heck would it jump up so fast without constantly breaking? And the answer is a scissor lift mech, which has been used by the professional grade haunters for years now, and it's finally coming to us more amateur haunters in a great way here with Mr. Dark. I'm so excited that this prop exists. I think the potential for this kind of technology is endless, and it actually is scary. It scared me many times in the Flagship store, and I could easily see this scaring a whole slew of people when they go through various haunted trails and mazes. One thing you have to be careful of with this guy is just how massive he gets. If you put him in a small room, he could easily break the ceiling, and he could be quite dangerous, too. My one complaint for Mr. Dark is that he doesn't look very scary. While he is scary, and I guess that beats out looking scary because the animation works so well, is that his appearance, when you look at it, well, it's just kind of a plain Reaper guy with no hood. And that's fine, but I feel like for such a unique mech, he really could have a really gruesome, unique looking face and hands, and it's just kind of what you would expect. Is he worth the price? Yes. Is he great? Absolutely. In the future, if he got reskinned into other types of characters, I would love it even more so. But Mr. Dark, I think, is going to be a great seller, and if you see him at one of your stores, grab him. So I finished this video with a different ending. I packed up all my camera stuff, my lighting, and my suit, and I left, and I was driving around for a little bit, and I realized that the ending that I first recorded wasn't as genuine, I felt. Like, it didn't match up with how I was truly feeling about the props, and I think that's honestly a good thing, because it goes to show that so many of these animatronics were top-notch that it was hard for me to decide my top 3. So all 3 of these are fantastic. I don't exactly know the order, but I have a better idea now, because I really tried to think of what would I want to purchase first, and that really helped me answer this, I think. So, with that being said, here's my maybe top 3. I'm gonna try to make this as definite as possible, but this is difficult stuff. I have the official suit on for a reason, as you know. But here we go with the top 3. If my opinion changes, by the way, no, I'm not lying to you. It's just opinions change as they do. But sometimes you come in expecting something and you get something different. With that being said, number 3 is going to go to Mr. Howell, who was, in the first recording, my favorite of the animatronics. It is not that I suddenly hate him now or anything like that. It's just that the other two, I just thought about it for a while and I realized that maybe I would cherish those a bit more. And yes, the top 2 are licensed, but what can I say? I'm a movie guy. It's what I gravitate to. But with that being said, though, Mr. Howell is by far the best animatronic werewolf I've ever seen. And that's saying a lot, because the 2012 Limb Ripper, Howler, Wolf Spitter, those were the best werewolves. Like, there were no other ones. And then the Home Depot one that looked like the American Werewolf in London werewolf was also really stellar. But Mr. Howell, I don't know what it was this year with the giant werewolf, but it just knocked it out of the park. I loved it. At Flagship, the Flagship one had some issues, so I'm hoping they got resolved, and I want to make sure it's top-notch, because it is a pretty penny, and maybe that's a little bit of the reasoning why I scooted these around, but like I said, they're really neck and neck, so don't think that suddenly Mr. Howell's terrible. He made it past all of these other animatronics. He's top-notch, super big, a showstopper for sure, and a really intimidating, scary werewolf. And there have been a lot of werewolf animatronics over the years, but none quite as freaky as Mr. Howell here. But let's move on to number 2. And this is where it's going to shock you. It's either going to shock and awe you, or just shock you up front. Especially people who know me well. But number 2 is going to Shorty. I know. That's both a bad and good thing. It's bad because you would think Shorty would be number 1, because I love Killer Clowns from Outer Space. And I've been advocating for this stuff. Like, I love that movie. I've talked about it for years on my channel. I've tried to petition to get Spirit to do it, and they've done it. And so thank you, Spirit, so much. I hope this means we get more Killer Clowns in the future, by the way. But Shorty here, what a great prop. I mean, talk about taking something directly from the screen. He looks like nearly identical, especially in the face, to the Shorty that we see in the film. My one issue with Shorty is that he's a little bulky at the bottom, and to me, that kind of throws it off a little bit in terms of the proportions of the character, especially because he's a lot bigger than I was expecting, which is a good thing for a prop. But also for the accuracy, I guess I had an idea in mind, because I was so hyped to see Shorty. But he was great. I mean, it's everything you want as a Killer Clowns fan. I can't wait to pick him up. I can't wait to have him in my room. And Killer Clowns, what can I say? It's an 80s classic. But now let's move on to number 1. It's weird for me to say that this is number 1, because I wasn't expecting to even buy it. Even when it was released in the videos, I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I do now, and perhaps this opinion may change, but I have to be honest with you. Number 1 is the ghost with the most, is Beetlejuice. I don't quite know what happened, but I saw the videos of Beetlejuice, and I have the same kind of issues with seeing him in person as I do in the video, and I'll tell you that in a minute. But it's so good to me. I don't know, I love the animatronic. I think it ranks for me anyways with the best of the licensed characters. It reminds me of the old school days of the Jemmy stuff, of the Jimmy, Jason, and the Freddy. It has that kind of vibe to it, and you can really tell they put so much work into making this look like that character, and putting him on the tombstone was a great idea. Having him move side to side with his hands kind of out like the poster. The one at Flagship, it was a little more down. I would probably adjust it so it's a little higher to give him some more the bounce in the hands to make it, you know, more personality. I think you can pose the hands. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. And maybe just because I love the movie, too. I love both Killer Clowns and Beetlejuice. They're, like, some of my favorite movies of all time, so it's really hard to pick here. But I feel like, at the end of the day, if I had to go for one prop, like, and only pick one this year, it might have to be Beetlejuice. I know, it's really bizarre. It's just how the cookie crumbles, I guess, but what can I say? So my issue with him, in case you were wondering, is that, and this is going to be a complaint with any Beetlejuice, because I've wanted one for a long time, and we had ones from Jemmy, Morbid, other companies, I'm sure, but the problem with all of them, and this one to an extent, is that Beetlejuice is such an animated character, lively, he moves around fast, his face is very expressive, Michael Keaton, even through the makeup. But to do that with an animatronic with few motors and not cost $1 bazillion is tricky. But how they pulled it off here was really effective, and for an amateur budget, for the price you can get him with, especially with the coupon, I think is really good. And for fans of the movie, I'm sure it's going to be a great seller. I hope to get him, obviously, with him being in my #1 spot now. Yeah, Beetlejuice, #1. I hopefully didn't say his name 3 times, but I probably did, so Beetlejuice just for the record. That's it, you guys. That's the lineup. That's all of the props that I needed to talk about. Not including, of course, those online ones and the inbox-only ones and all of that good stuff. But in the comments below, what are your opinions? Because at the end of the day, these are just my opinions, and you're going to get whatever you want. I know a lot of people love Mr. Dark. Some people, I'm sure, love Pennywise. It's all up to you. And like I said, all of these props this year are pretty fantastic. So even if you disagree with me, I'm sure we can level somewhere with these. Thank you for watching, and remember, for all things Halloween, this is Hauntformer.